Amazon basin is burning at a record rate, according to Brazil's research center. More than 72,000 fires have scorched the country this year, an over 80% increase compared to the same period in 2018.
Okay. You've probably heard something about what's going on. The sun blocked out by smoke in Sao Paulo. Fires visible from space. Even the UN Secretary General tweeting about the importance of protecting the Amazon. But before we get into the thick of things, it might be a good idea to look at what the Amazon rainforest is, why it's important, and tackle some of the information floating around right now. First, we need to get something out of the way. Not all of the pictures of the Amazon fires spreading around are of the current fires. Some are of older fires, including deforestation of the rainforest from the 1980s, while others show fires from different parts of the world entirely. Now, I want to be clear about this. The situation in the Amazon is still serious. Just be aware of the sources you're checking, and when possible, try to find supporting sources whenever you're not sure of where something originated. The Amazon is the world's largest tropical rainforest. It's almost 80% the size of Australia, spanning 2.3 million square miles. About 60% of it lies within Brazil, and likewise, the Amazon makes up about 40% of Brazil's territory. It's also a richly diverse ecosystem. In fact, 1 of every 10 species of animal lives in it. Animals aren't the only kind of life that the Amazon is rich in either. It also contains over 1 million indigenous people who rely on the rainforest to live, and a wide variety of plants. Some of these plants have been used in local medicines too, and while further research is needed to determine the effectiveness of them as medical ingredients, it would be a shame to lose them. All those plants serve another important purpose too. There is a direct link between the health of the Amazon rainforest and both local and global climates. The lush foliage of rainforests absorb solar radiation, absorb carbon dioxide, and release oxygen back into the atmosphere. On the topic of oxygen, we have to talk about something. While the figure that the Amazon rainforest is responsible for providing 20% of the Earth's oxygen is thrown around a lot, it's not quite accurate.
Because it's a fake fact, no one even knows where it came from?
While trees do create oxygen during photosynthesis, they also respire, just like animals do. According to Philip Fearnside, a professor at Brazil's National Institute of Amazonian Research, trees use up most of the oxygen that they produce through photosynthesis. How much oxygen does the Amazon rainforest actually produce? Well, that takes a bit of calculation, but it is something that we can track. So strap in for this episode's dose of science. According to Scott Seleska, an assistant professor of ecology and evolutionary biology at the University of Arizona, the atmosphere is comprised of about 20.95% oxygen, a figure that's not changing much. Seleska also put the figure that tropical vegetation is responsible for about 25% of oxygen produced by land-based photosynthesis. And since the Amazon represents about half of those, we can guess that it would represent about 12 to 13% of the total. Complicating things further, land-based photosynthesis only accounts for about half of photosynthesis, bringing that figure closer to 6%. A figure that is supported by climate scientists like Michael E. Mann, director of the Penn State Earth System Science Center, and Dr. Jonathan Foley, director of Project Drawdown. But what the Amazon does do is act as a massive carbon sink, sucking up large quantities of carbon dioxide. And when the trees are cut down, that CO2 is released into the atmosphere, and as it degrades, the entire rainforest will go from being a CO2 sink to being a net emitter of the gas. And when enough trees are burned down in so close an area, another toxic gas is released: carbon monoxide. If that sounds familiar, it should. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that is produced when wood burns without adequate access to oxygen. According to NASA, it can remain in the atmosphere for about a month and can impact air quality when blown by winds. You probably even have an alarm in your home for it, and prolonged exposure to it can result in, well, death. According to NASA's atmospheric infrared sounder instrument aboard the Aqua satellite, the Amazon fires have produced a massive plume of carbon monoxide that spreads beyond Brazil's borders, even past the Pacific coast. On top of that, the Amazon is necessary to keep the surrounding areas hydrated. The trees of the rainforest suck up rainwater through their roots, which moves up into the canopy before being released into the air. This process is called evapotranspiration, which is a word I didn't have to say 8 times and I'm not going to say again, and is carried out by so many trees that the Amazon is the source of rainfall all the way up to California, and the loss of these trees could result in drought. Speaking of California, it's important to note that unlike forests in California or Africa, which have adapted to a burn cycle, the Amazon hasn't. Normally wet and humid, the Amazon isn't meant to burn out of control like this. That's not to say that there aren't questions to be asked about the fires in, say, the African Savannah, but it isn't as destructive as the deforestation in the Amazon, and can even be good for the local ecology. Yes, there is a dry season that lasts from around August to November, and during this time, natural fires do break out. But the serious damage is caused by intentional fires, set to clear land for mining operations, agriculture, or logging. So how'd we get here? Well, to answer that, we're going to have to take a look at a bit of history, back to the late 1970s. Before this time, the majority of deforestation was carried out by subsistence farmers who were growing crops to be able to feed themselves. But things started to change around 1978, driven by larger-scale industrial activities such as soy farming, land speculation, illegal logging, mining, and the biggest of them all, cattle grazing. In fact, things got so bad that the kind of blaze we're seeing burn the Amazon down now wouldn't have been out of place in the 1980s, during which it was reported that the equivalent to a football field a minute was cut down. American football or European? The answer is, doesn't matter. It sucks for everyone. The situation grew dire enough that on September 18, 1989, Time magazine made deforestation in the Amazon their front page story, complete with haunting cover illustration. In the issue, Time warned that loss or damage to the Amazon would be a, quote, incalculable catastrophe for the entire planet, and warned of a dramatic change to global weather patterns and heightened the warming trend that may result from the greenhouse effect. A warning was even delivered to Time by environmental scientists, saying that unless things change, the forest will disappear. The peak of Amazon deforestation came in 2004, hitting nearly 11,000 square miles of annual deforestation. But then something happened. The international community got involved to stop what was seen as a crisis, including Norway providing $1 billion to Brazil's Amazon Fund between 2008 and 2015. And Brazil passed laws to slow deforestation. This saw the rate of deforestation plummet. So, what happened? Well, it's a bit politically charged, but in short, a change in government priorities. The past few presidents have made changes to the forest code, their focus more on economic matters than environmental ones. Current President Jair Bolsonaro has faced criticism over his handling of the Amazon, as his government removed environmental protections promoting agriculture and mining, claiming at one point that non-government organizations had set the fire to discredit his government. Though from all sources I could find, there is no proof to back up these claims. Okay, so that's what we got here. Now, why does it seem like no one was reporting on the matter? Well, according to the BBC, they were. They just weren't aware of how bad the issue was. As early as July 2nd, the BBC reported on deforestation using bulldozers to clear trees for agriculture, and for illegal harvesting of valuable hardwood trees, including satellite imaging of one region's logging from 1984 to 2018. Of course, it's not just Brazil that's on fire. Wildfires in the Amazon are also up this year in Bolivia, French Guiana, Peru, Suriname, and Venezuela. At the moment, about 20% of the Amazon is already gone. The once thick canopies replaced with grasslands for cattle grazing or farms. Which brings us to the big question. How long until it's just gone? According to one article by The Guardian, at our current rate, about a century, give or take. Though there are a few caveats to that. Too good, more bad. So let's start with the good, just to take a break from the doom and gloom for a moment. Thankfully, the Amazon can regrow. According to Yadvinder Mali, a professor of ecosystem science at the University of Oxford, the forest takes about 20 to 40 years to regrow if allowed to regenerate. But, and he knew it was coming, this regrowth can't happen just anywhere, and since much of the land that has been cleared is now being used for agricultural purposes, with people living on it, a good portion can't be regrown at all. That said, there are now abandoned mines and pasture lands that were burning 15 years ago which have now been reforested. Though, if the rainforest isn't given enough time to recover, it may not matter anyways. Even if the Amazon isn't fully deforested by humans, it is possible that we'll hit a point where the rainforest won't be able to support itself anymore. Now, I do want to mention before we dig in too deep that there is still debate on this section. However, it has gained enough notice that my script goblin thought it was an important thing we talk about. According to the World Wildlife Foundation, the concern is that once we hit a certain point of rainforest destruction, the Amazon will be caught in a series of feedback loops that will lead to its own extinction. This process, known as a dieback, of course that's what it's called, is theorized to be what will happen once enough of the once thick, wet canopy is replaced with drier and more fire-prone savanna grasslands and brush, resulting in less rainfall, drying out the forest more, and leaving it unable to repair itself. Rinse and repeat. Scarier estimates say that this process would start when between 20 to 25% of the rainforest is lost, also known as right now. In the event of this particular doomsday scenario for the Amazon, it is predicted that the rainforest would stop soaking up carbon dioxide and begin releasing it instead. And the scariest part? We may not realize we've hit the point of no return until it's too late. Which leads us to the big question: how long until the Amazon rainforest is just gone? Well, at the current rate of deforestation, and assuming that a dieback scenario could happen, it might be gone by the end of the century. Other, more pessimistic estimates say that a dieback could happen as early as 2050. But hypothetically, let's speed things up. What if the Amazon rainforest were gone tomorrow? Well, I can't say for sure, but here's what it might look like based on our research. First things first, all of the carbon stored in the rainforest would be released into the atmosphere, which, all at once, would be a massive change. Plant and animal species that rely on the rainforest would have no habitat left and would likely go extinct without quick intervention. And that's not mentioning the indigenous people who would be left homeless, which, is kind of a big deal. The rainforest would be replaced with drier brush and savanna. The soil, which is naturally nutrient poor, would be useful for crops for a while, but sooner or later the nutrients would run out and leave the land unable to support farming. More problematic would be the loss of rainwater, since the trees in the rainforest are necessary for the evapotranspiration process. Without the rainforest, the climate would quickly become drier from South America all the way up to the United States. That means less rainfall, meaning worse droughts, meaning worse agriculture. That's the thing. We eat the rain from the Amazon, and if it were gone tomorrow, it wouldn't be long until we felt the repercussions. And not all of those repercussions would be direct, like food. Droughts can cause domino effects that hit communities harder. For example, lower crop yields mean farmers make less money, harming local businesses. It also means food costs more to be imported. If droughts become severe enough, they can cause river levels to drop, harming hydro dams, increasing the cost of electricity to your house. This could also mean water supplies would diminish, which is something that is more than a little important. That stuff we use for bathing, doing laundry, watering lawns, cooking. How do you think your house would look without as much water? Everything is connected, and drastic changes can have sweeping effects. Which leaves us where? Well, since we started working on this episode, a few things have happened. Brazil's president, Bolsonaro, announced a ban on fire for clearing land for 60 days and dispatched the army to fight wildfires burning through the Amazon, and South America countries are meeting to discuss a response. The official figures for fires now number at 87,000. The most active year since 2010, which, incidentally, is also the only year in the last decade with as much carbon dioxide released from the area. Now, all of this might lead one to think that this is a terrifying situation with a slew of potential long-term consequences. Well, I've done the research and, yeah. Kind of. Sorry, but this whole situation is just kind of a bummer. I'll be honest, I don't even really know how to end this one. Look, we even had a bit here about the ramifications this whole situation has on coffee production. We're going to add it at the end, and I was going to be like, oh, my coffee, I'm mad. But, yeah, honestly, I don't think it fits. This whole thing is just, I don't know. It feels bigger than that. The Amazon rainforest is burning, and that's pretty awful.